practicing the gradient tool. So as soon as it starts, I think it's starting. No. It should be running. There it is. It's still loading. Hopefully we'll have faster computers in a new building. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to start with a new file and just practicing. New file. Okay, so let's just practice and talk about the gradient tool. We basically saw it a little bit when we were working in the with the landscape, when we were making the sky and the green grass. Do you remember that? Okay, so let's practice making a circle this time. So the types of gradients you can have, okay, are you can have the linear gradient, which goes from one color to another, and you can have multiple colors in between, so we're going to practice that. Then if I wanted a sort of a sphere-looking ball shape, I can do a radial gradient where we can change where it goes from one color to another color. So if I was going to do let's say a ball, usually I might have a highlight on one side to a darker color, and then sometimes if this was on a plane, light would reflect off the plane and up onto the ball. So sometimes we actually have a highlight that goes along the edge, and so we're going to make one like that. Okay, so and that's called refraction. Not refraction. What is that called? Where it bounces off a surface onto another surface.
Reflection?
No,
No,
I guess
not quite.
reflection. So we'll make a ball, and then that ball will have a gradient, and then at the end we'll put a little small highlight so it looks like it's on a plane. Okay, and then there's other types of gradients. You can do one that goes in a circle, and we're just going to try those first before we even do anything, just to practice. So here we go. The first one, again, I'm going to try the linear gradient using a rectangle tool, using the rectangle tool. So if I draw a rectangle, it makes this simple rectangle. It's black, the black line with a white on the center. If I want to put a gradient in there, I can either click here. Again, the problem with the clicking on the gradient tool right here is it's going to make it black to white automatically. Black to white automatically. So if I click on this right here, and let me make this a little bigger so you can see it. There we go. If I click right here under the color swatch, it'll give it a gradient. But again, it's black to white. And I don't know how to make it easy to color. And it should pop up with the gradient pop-up window over here somewhere. And you can drag it out if you want. Move it around. Again, to move windows around, you can click on the word gradient and move them around like that. So to put color in here, it's kind of, the gradient actually goes from this white here to this black here. White here. Oops. We'll get to adding new ones. And black here. So in this case, if I click on this one and I want to change it to a color, it won't let me do it because it's in kind of black and white mode or grayscale mode. In order to put a color in there, I actually have to go and the easiest way is to actually choose a color. How do I do that? The easiest way that I found to put color in here is to open up the swatches. So if you don't see swatches, go under Window, Swatches, Swatches. And you can just drag a color from here into the little square and it'll give it some color. Try that. Again, drag from the swatches window onto the little square here. Once you do that, it's color now and you can change it to any color. I don't have an answer to how to fix that. I don't. Again, there's a little color on one side and a color on the other side. Once it's been colored, you can actually, double click on it and change the color if you want. Okay. Now if you want to add more gradients to the linear gradient here, you can actually add more gradients by clicking below this bar right here. And if you put your cursor below the bar, you'll notice you get a little plus that pops up. And that little plus allows you to add more colors to it. So if I click on there, I can click on a bunch of colors in there, and then you can change the colors. Uh-oh, don't do that, whatever you do. How about we drag the color on top of it? There we go. or double click on it. There we go. There we go. Look at that rainbow color. In addition to, you can move the colors around, so you can have colors that are real close to each other and further apart. In addition, the colors can actually have an opacity to them. So when we get to making a water drop, we're going to have our water drop kind of blend with the object underneath it by changing the opacity of the edge of the water drop so it softly blends with the colors underneath it. So I'm not going to deal with that because I don't have anything underneath here to transparency for it to go to. If you want to get rid of a color that's in here, the easiest way to get rid of it is if you click on a color that's in the linear gradient and drag straight down, and it goes away. Again, click inside the color and drag straight down. If you want to, let me give it another color. If you want to adjust, there's also a little diamond at the top of the bar that allows you to adjust where the gradient starts and stops. You can also hit the trash can to remove, but I find it easier just to drag straight down. Again, if you add one and you want to remove it, you can either hit the delete key, or if you have it, you can drag, like I said, you can drag by holding the mouse down and dragging straight down. If you want to adjust the angle, oosh, you don't want to do that, don't do that. If you want to adjust the angle of the gradient, now they do have a little angle thing here that allows you to adjust the angle, but that, that is just doing it all kind of here. A better way to adjust an angle and to adjust your gradient is to use the gradient tool. It's in the toolbar over here. It's called the gradient tool. I think we looked at this. If you click on the gradient tool over here, you can manipulate by drawing a line over top of your object to give it different colors. Oh, look at that sunset color. Sunset, sunset, sunset. Again, it's a tool called the gradient tool. It's in the toolbar. It allows you to draw a gradient. Shorter or longer. Shorter or longer. Is it fun or what? You ready to try the ball? Okay, let's try a ball. So that's just a linear gradient. That's fun and all, but let's do a different one. Let's make a ball. So this time I'm going to make a sphere using the ellipse tool. The ellipse tool is the same tool that's underneath the rectangle tool. And if I draw an ellipse, it still has the linear gradient inside the ellipse. I'm going to turn off the stroke first. Remember, the stroke is the line that goes around the outside. I'm going to turn off the stroke by clicking on the stroke here and hitting none. None. Then in the gradient pop-up window, it says linear. I'm going to change until radial. Radial. And let's change the colors. Of course, I want to have a nice light color in the center. So I'm going to do a really light blue to maybe a dark blue. And maybe even add a white, like a really bright blue. Now if you want to change the position, right now it's just a big kind of circle. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Again, it's just a big circle. Again, how did I make this? It's called, under the gradient tool, it's called type radial gradient. Radial gradient. And then I changed some colors. If the dark area and you want to switch it, you could just move these things around like that. See that? Want light on the outside, dark on the inside. You can move these around inside here. To adjust where the highlight is located, you can use the gradient tool, again the gradient tool, and inside there you can grab the center point and move it around so you can change where the highlight is. And you can even adjust the highlight in a little bar that shows up. Okay, and how am I adjusting this? This is the gradient tool. After I make my gradient, I can go to my gradient tool and do that. And then just like I said earlier, if there was a plane that this ball was on, light would bounce off the plane and onto it. You might want to put just a little highlight at the very end here, at the very end, a little highlight, a little bright highlight. Oops, didn't want to do that. Just a little one right at the very, very tippy toe end there. And then I can actually expand this a little bit further by dragging. Uh-oh. Here we go. You can make it bigger. There we go. And how am I doing this? This tool has all kinds of ways of manipulating it. Ah, jeez. We had to do that. Just like these little dots that go around the outside. Allows you to adjust the gradient radially. Radially? Is that a word? Radially?
Maybe.
Maybe it's a word? Nah. It's hard to deal with. That's a pretty good ball though. I just want to move it a little bit. No. Oh, click on the center point. That moves it, doesn't it? No. There we go. That moves it. I don't know. Does it look like a ball? It has like a little reflection on the bottom, like I was saying. You're just gonna have to practice with that. It's not an easy tool to get used to. I can tell you that right now. It's not easy at all. But it is possible. Radial gradient. Okay, let's try the gradient mesh. Okay, so let's try a different tool. The next one is the gradient mesh, which we'll primarily use for making the fruit. Now the gradient mesh works totally different than the gradient tool. The gradient mesh works by coloring dots that are in a mesh that's over top of your object. What is a mesh? Okay, a mesh is a grid. Okay, so a grid. So let's just use a square for now. So if I make a square and I put a color in it, it's one color. What I can do is a tool called the gradient mesh tool, where I can go and I can put a point down. What the tool does is it puts a point down, and that point then shoots out a line. That line goes down to the edge of an object and puts another point. Then it shoots another line out that goes to the edge and puts another point. And then it shoots another line out, puts another point, and then shoots another line out and puts another point. Okay, so it's a lot different than the gradient tool in that you're dealing with points of color and not an area of color. Where the gradient tool kind of works with an area of color. This works by changing the color of points. So we're going to go and make a kind of a grid where this is a color here, okay? And it can be different than the color here, and so it'll gradate from here to there, it'll gradate from here to there, gradate from here to there, gradate from there to there. And so these all can be different colors, and the grading can go in multiple ways. It's great for doing something like an apple, right? You want an apple, we can click, and we can have the color go, and the color goes from one color here to a different color there, from a different color here to a different color here to a different color there. And the gradients can go in a line almost. Okay, this is almost like the linear gradient goes from here to here, really, but it's a little bit different. So let's try. I'm making a rectangle. I'm going to make a rectangle. I'm going to fill it in with a solid color. You don't put a gradient mesh over a gradient. You put a gradient mesh over a solid color. So I'm going to, again, put the rectangle on there. I'm going to put a rectangle on, and I'm going to give it a solid color. So I just made a rectangle with a solid color. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the gradient mesh tool. The gradient mesh tool looks like this tool over here. It's called the mesh tool. It's kind of down on the left side. Let's count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down, left side. And again, just like I drew on the board, I'm going to kind of click in the upper left corner. If I click right there, boom, it draws a line like I drew on the board, right? It drew a line. Now I don't see any difference. Hey, I don't see no color. But the key here is that dot that I just put in there has the same color as the background. That's why. If I go and change the color now, I'm going to go choose some yellow. I'm going to choose some yellow right now. Watch what happens. You get a color in your object, because what it's doing now is it's kind of like a linear gradient. This is green here to yellow. That's green to yellow. That's green to yellow. That's green to yellow. So right now you have 5 points. What are the 5 points? You have one in the center that has color in it. It's yellow. I have one here that's kind of the same green as the background color, so it doesn't really look different. I have one there, and one there. But what I can do is I can select each one of those points and change their colors also. If I come over here, I can select that point that's on the end right here. See this point on the end? And I can give it a different color. Ooh, look at that. Okay. Then I can click on this point here and give that a different color. Woo! We're making Christmas trees here. Click on there, and then click on here. My green is going to be almost gone. Yeah. So if you want to make something that looks like that, using the gradient tool would be hard. Okay, this is a lot easier. And not only can you change the colors of the points that are in there, you can move those points around. You can drag them around. Watch. I can drag this point right here. I can drag it like this. Okay, now if you get too close to an edge, you get these big long lines like that, and it gets kind of messed up. But when we get to making a banana, right, what we're going to do is when we make a banana, think of the banana shape here, we're going to have a line that goes like this, and we'll have the gradient go real close together like that, so you get this line. You have contrast line. In addition to moving a point around, it also has directional arms. Remember last week when we were making the pen tool and we were adjusting the curve of the line using directional arms? Do you remember that? Well, the gradient mesh has directional arms. You can adjust the way that the gradient moves through space with a directional arm. I can move it down and adjust your gradient, move it up. You can see how it adjusts the gradient. I can move it this way, move them this way. If you click off, look at that. Look at the colors inside there. You couldn't really do that with the old traditional gradient. Okay. So again, this is called gradient mesh. You can use the white selection tool to select and move points around if you want. Again, the white selection tool can be used to move points around. Okay, does it look like fun? Who thinks it's fun? Okay, good. Who's ready to make you want to do pear or an apple? I like pear. Pear? You want to do a pear? Okay, let's do a pear. So, again, you see that it gets messy when you get a lot of colors in there, so. Gradient in there, put solid. It's going to have a lot of. Okay, you guys ready to make a pear? You like pears? Or apples? Mango, pear, or apple? Any pears? Okay. So of course, it's not really easy to start with your brain, right? My brain is full of nothingness, empty brain. So it's easy to steal a picture from the internet. Let's go to Google, find a picture of a pear, download it. We're going to bring it into Illustrator. We use the eyedropper tool to suck up the colors from the photograph and make a little palette so that when we're drawing our gradient mesh, we can choose the colors that came from the photograph. Right? So that's the steps. So here we go. Let's go steal. Stealing is good. Stealing is fun. Go to the internet. Go to your favorite website, Google, not archive.org, though we do like that one. Type in pear. And find an image. Oh, this one even has water droplets on it. Look at that. This is a good one. I'm going to go with this one. I don't know if we can get water droplets today going. You can choose any one you want. And if you don't want to draw a pear, you don't have to draw a pear. You can draw any fruit you like. The steps are exactly the same. Go through the same steps for an apple. Okay, to download your pear, I'm going to click on it. There it goes. To get it into Illustrator, you can either download the picture onto the computer and then say File Place, or you can copy and paste directly from the internet right into Illustrator. How we copy and paste is right-click on it, say Copy Image, right-click, Copy Image, go back to Illustrator, and say Edit Paste. It might be really big. I'm going to zoom out by Command minus. Look how big it is. It took up my whole... Look at my artboard. Look how small my artboard is. Well, the reason why is because it copied it from the website, which was probably a high-resolution image, you know, so it took up a lot of space. It's all right. With an image like this, you can always shrink it down, shrink it down. I'm going to shrink it down by putting my cursor along the edge and scrolling down. Putting my cursor along the edge, scrolling down, and put it in the middle. There we go. So again, if it fills up your whole screen, you can go and shrink it down.
Uh-huh. Need to get rid of the white background in the picture?
You can do that. You can't do that inside of Illustrator. You do that inside of Photoshop. Yeah. White around there. I know. Okay, you guys ready? Let's suck up the colors. So the first thing I would do is maybe suck up the colors and make myself a palette, or a swatch. So what you can do is you can take the colors from here and put them in the swatches, and then as you're building and making your pear, you can choose the colors that you choose. You can also, as you're drawing with the tools, use the eyedropper to suck up a color from a bitmap. Okay, again, I think the first week of class I said, hey, this is different. There's two types of graphics in the computer. You have bitmap graphics and you have vector graphics. Traditionally, we're drawing with vector graphics inside this program. But it doesn't mean you can't use the eyedropper inside the program to suck up a color from a bitmap. Remember, the bitmap image made little pixels, little dots in there. So here, I'm going to open up the swatches window. If you don't see swatches, you can go under Windows Swatches. In this swatches window, you can make a folder. You'll notice in the swatches, if you don't see swatches, you go under Windows Swatches. It should pop up somewhere. There's like a little folder right here. So I'm going to make a folder, and I'm going to call it pear. And then I'm going to make new colors inside there. So in the swatches window, I can make a folder right here. This is new color group, a new color group. And I'm going to call it pear. And I'm going to hit OK. And it makes it like a little folder in there. So it makes a little folder in there. Then what I can do is, there is an eyedropper tool that's right below the gradient mesh tool. It's called the eyedropper tool, right there under the gradient mesh. What I can do is I can take my cursor, again it's called the eyedropper tool, I can take it out here and I can click on a color. Once I've clicked on a color, inside of the swatches window there's like a new window. It's next to the trash can. It's like a new. So again, I use the eyedropper tool. I go and select the color from here, and I go and there's like a little folding page peel thing looking icon right here. If I click on that, it'll make a new color in my swatches. Okay, again, eyedropper tool, click on a color, in the swatches window, click the new button. And if I hit the new button, it'll ask me, hey, give it a name, whatever. You just hit OK. Oh, it put it up here. That's okay. If it puts it up there, you can drag it into your folder down there. You can move them around in here. I thought it would put it automatically there, but it didn't seem to do that. Maybe if I select it first. Let me select this group. Again, eyedropper, suck up a color. I'm going to get a little darker. And then hit new. And you can give it a name, but I'm just going to hit OK. If it puts it up there, I can drag it down there. I want it in a row. You can move it around. Maybe even a darker green. Down here's a darker one. New. Really bright one. But it's a nice color. Okay, so I have a bunch of different greens. Maybe the brown for the stem. I'm going to get some browns in there for the stem. Brown in there for the stem. Kind of a tan. Maybe a green in there for my leaf. Leaf green. Okay. So do you see how you can take colors from a photo and store them in here? And so when I start using my gradient mesh, I will use those colors to make my pair. It makes it easier. I don't know. I'm going to drag them down into the folder. Maybe put it over on the end. Decent colors? Okay, you ready for your pair? You guys ready to draw? Okay, again, what tool do you think we're going to use for the pair? Pen tool, right? Remember the fabulous tool. Now, if you are not comfortable with the pen tool, just use the pencil tool. You can use the pencil tool if you want. Just go all the way around the pair. So I'm going to make just one. Oh, let's lock this layer first so we don't mess with it. Let's lock it and make a new layer. So remember, organizing layers is a good idea. So remember, we have the picture in this layer. I'm going to lock it. Right here is a little lock right here. Lock it. And then I'm going to make a new layer. And then I'm going to use my pen tool because I love the pen tool. If I remember, I've been using the pen tool since 1988. So I make it look easy, I know, but I've been doing it a long time. Okay, so Here we go. I'm just going to go click all the way around the outside. I'm going to start from the top here, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Remember, the curves are when you click and hold the mouse down. Gives you little curves. Now, when you're drawing, make sure you try and put down the least amount of points, because remember, when you're using that gradient mesh, did you see how it made points? So it gets really messy very quickly. So you want to use the least amount of points you can. Remember our Name That Tune discussion? In the 70s, I watched a TV show, Name That Tune. And people would name that tune. And so least amount of points, I can make a pair with only 4 points. And now if everything gets kind of goofy, don't worry. You can adjust the points later. Look, see how my bottom is a little messed up there? That's okay. I can adjust the points later. Just try and get it close. Try and get it close. Look, see, that's all messed up there. Don't worry. And always go back to the beginning. So if you want to adjust your points, again, use the white direct selection tool. And I can click on my points and adjust my directional arms. You remember how we can adjust directional arms separately with the option key held down? There we go. There we go. And this one's way crazy over here. There we go. Look at that. There we go. Big pear shape. If it's not perfect, it's okay. And if you don't like the pen tool, just use the pencil tool. Same thing. There's the pencil. Go all the way around the outside with the pencil. That's a little harder for me. All the way around with the pencil. Woo! That's hard for me. There we go. You can use the pencil if you want. Here we go, pen tool.
No.
Okay, so I have my base shape. I might make it kind of a medium color. I'm going to go with kind of that color. So the base color, and what I mean by base color is like the color that you start with, right? Because I can go dark and I can go light. So I like to, when I start using the gradient mesh, I like to start with, you know, kind of a medium color that I can add some darks to or add some lights to and things like that. So when I go to put the gradient mesh down, I want to think a little bit about how the shape is, okay, and where the highlights are. If you want, you can actually move the object away if you want. Sometimes this is what I do is I already drew my pear shape. I might take and use my black selection tool and move it over next to it like that so I can see. Okay? I can see. And so if I move it next to it, I can kind of give an idea. You see the highlights are all kind of in this area over here. And maybe I want some dark ones here. This doesn't have a lot of volume to it. It doesn't have a lot, but that's all right. I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit to make it look a little bit more volume to it. So remember, the thing will shoot arrows out. So I want one that's going to kind of come like this. I want something kind of going like this because it kind of curved right here. See how it kind of curved? Kind of right like that. So I'm going to actually put a gradient mesh that goes along that area. So I'm going to move, let me make my artboard a little bigger so I can see that. If you ever want to make your artboard bigger, there's an artboard tool right here. You just click on it and you can drag your artboard a little bigger. There we go. So it's all white and there's not a black line going through it. Okay, here we go. To put the gradient mesh in my object, I'm going to use the gradient mesh tool.
and I'm going to click kind of right here where there's a big highlight right there. I'm going to click right there. I'm going to make that a super highlight first. Notice how the line starts following the contour of the shape. See how the line kind of curves right here and then goes down and rotates and then curves again, because it's taking into consideration the ovalness of the outside of the object. So it has that natural kind of look to it. And then I'm going to use one of my light colors, my very bright color that I have in there. Okay, so that will add a nice kind of starting point. Now, since the gradient mesh tends to put lines and more dots down when you click, one way to avoid having too many dots or too many colors you have to deal with, because each dot is a color you have to deal with, one way to do that is to I saw that in your drawing the other day. You need to go all the way around. You can't stop. You're going to do this. You can't just do a little bit and then start and then start again. And start and then start again. And then start. You can't do that because it's not putting it together at all. You're going to do that. You need to move all the way around. Okay, so and then color that in with a color, solid color. Can't take anything else. Did you make any swatches? Let's see if we can do swatches. There. There you go, you got some green in there, I see. Some green here. It looks like there's a bunch of greens right here. So, oh, okay, there you go. You have some right there. So, again, the gradient mesh tool is that one, and so I kind of click right there. So again, to put another point of color down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it along a line so that I don't add extra stuff to it. Watch up here real quick and see a mistake. I'll do a mistake first, and then I'll do it correct the next time. Watch what happens. So if I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. If you using the gradient mesh tool, it's wonderful. If you click like right here, look what I just did. I just added another line, but then I got a point here now, a point there now. Now I got 2 points over there, and I got 2 points right there. I just added a much more complex. It's like much more complex. So instead of doing something like that, I'm going to undo that. You click along the line that the gradient mesh does. You click along, and what it does is it adds a point, but then it doesn't add a second bar. And now I have less points to deal with. So now I can add another color. I'm going to add a kind of a medium green over here. Oop, that's a little dark. Medium green, there we go. And I might even click along the edge over here. Actually, I'm going to click down here. I'm going to cheat a little bit and add one way down there. I'm going to kind of give it a dark green down there. And maybe this edge right here. I'm going to give that a dark green. And the edge along the bottom here, a dark green. And an edge down here, dark green. I'm exaggerating a little bit here. And then, of course, remember you can move your points around. So I might move them. This is kind of a little bit more. Move them around. Oh, don't. If you have too many next to each other, whoosh, it makes it real messy. And that doesn't look too bad. I might put another highlight up here at the top right there. I'm going to click kind of somewhere right there and put a really bright one up there. There we go. So you can try to use as little as you can to get the color you want. So I exaggerated. I made it extra dark down here to give it more volume, and I put 2 highlights. So we got at least a basic shape of a pair, or basic colors for a pair. Next, I'll get to that, practice that for a moment, then I'll go over how to put the little dots in there, right? Because the pair has little dots on it, right? We got to do that still, too. So I will come and help you do this pear shape. Or I like the way it is. So I'm not going to try and add a texture to an existing one. I'm going to duplicate this, apply the texture to the duplicate version, and then put it over top of it and blend them both together. Okay, so that would be the step. So again, I'm going to duplicate this one by using the black or whatever directs or this selection tool, and you can hit the Option key and click and drag. It'll make a duplicate copy. Option, click and drag. I'm going to make my artboard a little bigger so it's all white. Okay, so again, I duplicated by clicking Option, click and drag with the black arrow. We'll duplicate. Okay, let's make a little texture. So the easiest way, we're going to cheat a lot in this class, and one way to cheat to make textures is to use the art tools, and there's some art tools in there. The one I like to use for this demo is probably noise. So I'm going to apply noise to this object right here. So if I click on the object, I can go underneath where it says Effects, Artistic Effects. You'll see there's a whole bunch of these artistic effects. Oh, actually, film grain is the one I like. That adds a bunch of dots to your thing. So again, I selected the duplicate copy, the one I duplicated, and I went to Effect, Artistic, and I'm going to choose Film Grain. Film Grain. And you'll see what it does is it puts a bunch of dots over top of your object. And of course they look really close together, so I'm going to kind of maybe exaggerate a little bit, maybe make a highlight area. Ooh, there it is. And then maybe intensity, turn it up. I don't know. There's a bunch of dots. Don't worry. It'll look okay. What's another one that I've used before? Oh, there's a grain one. Grain works too. What did I say? Film noise? Mm-hmm. There was one, film noise or grain. Grain does the same kind of thing. It adds a little bunch of dots to it. Don't worry, we're going to blend it into the other one, so it's not going to look this crazy. It's going to be blended in with the other one. They'll blend together. Use a blending tool. What else is there? That's right. Texturizer works sometimes, and instead of under the texturizer, there's one for sandstone. That kind of works. This works good. The sandstone works good for sandstone works good for orange. Right? Does that look like a texture of an orange a little bit? Right. So again, that one was under texturizer. Sandstone under texturizer. That works good for an orange. Burlap. Oosh, no, that's pretty ugly. Brick. No. That's good. I'm going to go back to grain. I like the first one I did. What was that called again? That was
film grain.
Yeah, where is that? I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Thank you. Yeah, there it is. Film grain. I'm going to go back to my film grain. When I'm done, I'm going to hit OK. Now, it doesn't look quite nice, does it? It's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object and put it directly over top of the other one. I'm going to put it over top of the other one. So I know I messed this one up. It looks kind of goofy. That's okay. I'm going to put it over top of the other one. Once it's over top of the other one, I'm going to go to the Appearance window, which is Window Appearance. And under the Appearance window, I can then give it some options. What are some of the options I could give it? Well, oh, no, it's not working. That's not what I want. Oh, not that. I'm sorry. Not appearance. My mistake. We want transparency. I'm sorry. We want transparency. So again, I'm sorry, not appearance. We want to go under Window Transparency. That's it, transparency. And so under transparency, you have an opacity slider and a blending mode right here. So again, it's under Window Transparency. You have one over top. I'm going to change the blending mode to like lighten or maybe screen. Ooh, that's not good. How about soft light? Ooh, that's pretty good. Soft light works well. So if I zoom in now, you'll see I get a little bit of a texture. If you think it's too much texture, you can turn the opacity down also under transparency. And I just want a subtle texture. So by turning the opacity down, it'll turn the top one down a little bit, and the bottom one will blend in. And so you start getting the ability to add textures by making a separate object and then applying some blending mode. The blending mode, again, is located under transparency. There's a pull down menu here. These are the same blending modes you have in Photoshop, right? You guys use these in Photoshop probably, these blending modes. It's the same kind of idea where it takes whatever's on top and blends it with the one underneath it. And they have all different, these are actually very old. This darken, multiply, color burn, lighten, screen, color dodge, overlay, soft light, hard light, difference exclusion. The first time I saw these blending modes was probably 1994, 95. And they were in Macromedia Director. When we would do animation, they were in Director. You could use them for animation. Yeah. But if you zoom in, you might not see it, but there is texture in there. If you zoom in, mine you can barely see, but if I zoom in, you can see, uh-oh. Oh, did it crash? Crashed. Look at that. It gave me crashed. Crashed. If you ever get to the black and white mode like this, and you're like, what happened? You got to go underneath the view and say overview, preview, view preview. So if you're ever in this mode, if it freaked out on you and goes to this outline mode, go under preview. It's under view preview. In fact, when you first started working inside of Illustrator back in 1988, when I first started working in Illustrator in 1988, you actually worked in outline mode all the time, and because the computers were not fast enough to calculate the colors. So you actually worked in this mode, and then when you wanted to see the color version, you would go to view preview and see it. But the computers were not powerful enough to really work in the color mode because the video cards only had, 25 megahertz processor, the video card, and the computer really couldn't calculate the stuff. In fact, we didn't have even, back in 1988, there was no gradient tool, there was no gradient mesh tool. We had to use something called the blend tool to make like a gradient back then. Okay, we can stop now. We're almost done. I gotta go see the Danish, thank you. But I don't know. Did anybody get the texture to work? Did you see it? Okay. Blending modes. That's very good stuff to start with.